you are the supply of the problem. So it's both sides. If women were far more careful and pious with their sexual choices, men would follow.
Charlie Kirk gets approached by a Gen Z liberal student who tries to corner him with a question about red pill influencers like Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes. But what happens next? Total reversal. Charlie doesn't just answer, he dismantles the entire cultural narrative around modern masculinity, feminism, and hookup culture. And he does it with facts, logic, and a boldness that leaves the room stunned. This moment isn't just a win, it's a wake-up call. Let's break this debate between Charlie Kirk and this woke liberal.
Hi, I have to film this, so can I give my friend my phone after I ask?
Whatever you want.
Okay, thank you. So with the rise of like red pill content creators, such as like men like Nick Fuentes or Andrew Tate, you know. Yeah. Well, what is your opinion on Gen Z men idolizing these influencers and influencers like them? And as yourself are a conservative influencer in some way, do you think that they're like them and their followers are justified in what I would say extreme beliefs? Because, you know, they can tend to skew to an extremity. But do you think that they are justified? And even then with those beliefs, do you think that in a way they are tainting other people's view of the conservative community?
Okay, yeah, right here is where the trap is being set. I don't know about you guys, but every time I hear this kind of question, it sounds like they're just waiting for Charlie Kirk to defend the worst parts of the internet. But watch how Charlie doesn't fall for it. He redirects, doesn't take the bait, and instead shifts the convo toward what really matters. How society has failed young men. That's chess, not checkers.
It's a good question. Look, I have a great heart for young men that have grown up in a toxically feminine society that has told them that it's a problem that they exist and that they don't understand anything about male human development. They don't understand anything about what a 13, 14, or 15-year-old boy needs, how they grow, how they're largely immature and hyper-physical, and they know nothing about actually how to turn boys into men. The large, like, basically the pedagogical monopoly, which means just pedagogy, you know, educational monopoly, has no idea how to turn boys into men. Here's my advice. I always try to point to the scriptures as to the best way to turn boys into men. And the best way to turn boys into men, very simply, is to restrain your impulses, do something adventurous, confront evil, stand up for those that can't stand up for themselves, and save yourself unto marriage and find one sexual partner for your life.
That's real talk. Charlie Kirk just laid down a blueprint most dudes today never hear. Like, how often do you hear anyone tell young men to be disciplined, to fight for good, to delay gratification? We're in a world that tells you to chase vibes, not values. But Charlie, he's flipping that script.
That's where I lose a lot of people. And in fact, I believe marriage is a moral good for yourself and for society. I think we engage way too much in the flesh. We drink too much. We do too many drugs. We have hookup culture. We watch too much pornography. It's always about instant gratification, where we as men, we enjoy the difficult and the adventurous, but it should be for noble and righteous purposes. And so insofar as someone's advocating for that, I'll agree with it. Otherwise, I would say that not so much.
One more? Okay, so other than like your advice to young men, what do you think that us as a society could do to kind of steer young boys and Gen Z men to like a better path than this like very indulgent lifestyle of like constantly getting girls and like using women for...
Well, and can I just interrupt you for a second? It goes both ways. So on the other side, radical feminism tells girls to get as many sexual partners as you can, to go sow your oats. And basically what the feminists have done is like every 19-year-old boy's dream, is that every girl is easy and accessible, and you don't have to work to go get sex. in the way it should be, a boy should have to become a very mature, very sophisticated person to get to the point of sex. So the boy doesn't have to grow up to get what he wants anymore. And so a lot of this is on women who have basically become pseudo OnlyFans models, going around selling themselves for no, basically for no price whatsoever, because free sex will liberate you. Let me say this as gently as I can. Free sex drives young women insane. The more sexual partners a young woman has in college, the more likely she is to be clinically depressed, on antidepressants, because sex for men is totally different than sex for women.
And this is where the crowd probably got uncomfortable, but I mean, he's not wrong. This is one of those things people know deep down, but no one wants to say out loud. Charlie Kirk isn't sugarcoating it. He's exposing what the culture hides. And you can tell this hit a nerve because the silence after this point, loud.
Sex for women is emotional attachment. It is relational. It is not transactional and is not purely physical. For whatever reason, the way men were designed and wired, they could have sex with 9 people over 2 weeks and just like, okay, whatever. Like, it's not that big of a deal. It's completely different for young women. And so we have told young women through this hyper-feminist model, go act like men, and a lot of people end up severely depressed. The final thing I'll say is this, is that education is incredibly feminine in its approach and also in its staffing. 75% of teachers before 8th grade are women. Nothing against women teachers, but this is a truism of life. Young men don't like taking orders from women. I'm sorry, it's just a fact of life.
All right, I know this one probably had every woke student in the room ready to explode. But again, Charlie Kirk just says what everyone else is too scared to admit. Cool, look, it's not about disrespecting women. It's about recognizing how young men are wired. And he's making a bigger point. Boys need strong male role models, period.
Young men need strong men to say, stop it, be better. And they will sit down and shut up when a man tells them. And so, and especially one that has their act together. So all that to say, we need more strong biblical men that have their act together to actually get involved in young men's lives. And women, for the love of everything holy and good, stop giving your body away to every man that wants it and save yourself for marriage. You are the supply of the problem. So it's both sides. If women were far more careful and pious with their sexual choices, men would follow.
This is it, the mic drop moment. Charlie doesn't just explain the effect, he calls out the cause. He flips the whole hookup culture dynamic on its head and says, ladies, you have more power than you realize. And in doing so, he basically challenges the entire feminist movement in one sentence. That's bold.
If all of a sudden the supply side of this equation would be like, actually, sorry, you have to date me seriously and get married to have sex with me. All of a sudden men would be like, well, I better get my act together. I better get a job. Men will react to the signal of sex quicker than women will. Because young men, especially 19, 20 years old, that's all they think about all day. Sports and sex, what they think about all day long. And for young women, they're like, what do you mean? Like, there's no way. Like, no, honestly, this is a hilarious true study. Harvard University put 20 men in a room alone, no phones, no TV, no newspapers. They stared at a wall. They put 20 women in a room. They asked the men, what did you think about? I think about sports and sex the entire time. Okay. They asked women, what did you think about? They said, we were replaying conversations that we had earlier in the last couple of days. It is very rare that a man will ever repay a conversation in the history. Like, we're very forward thinking, and finally, we are very macro. Men are macro thinkers, women are micro thinkers. That is why if you sit down with somebody on campus, that is a woman, she's probably talking about the grades in her class, her relationships, her friends, or things that people said to her. You sit down to a man on campus, he's talking about his crypto wallet, whether or not his DraftKings account is in the surplus or in a deficit, and whether or not, Donald Trump is going to take Greenland. The most macro thing imaginable. We are wired differently, and it's time for our educational system to reflect that. Thank you so much.
Also, can I get a hat?
Yes, you can. Thank you. Yes, next question.
At the end of the day, Charlie Kirk didn't just respond. He took over. This wasn't just about red pill influencers. This was a total breakdown of why young men and women are more lost than ever, and what needs to change. While others dance around the truth, Charlie Kirk walks right into it, unapologetically. And whether you agree with him or not, You can't say he held back.